Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach, and today with us we have Dr. Bajaj. Now, Dr. Bajaj has written a fantastic book called Live Your Best Life, Understanding Menopause for a Wiser, Happier, and Healthier You. Now, I've read this book and I absolutely love it. This is the second part to our conversation. Do make sure you listen to the first part so you know what we're talking about. In this particular podcast, we're going to talk about what are the things that you can do to make your journey through perimenopause easier. Doctor, are there certain lifestyle changes that people need to make from perimenopause to menopause and afterwards that smoothen the transition? Maybe things that they need to eat or exercise or other aspects of the lifestyle?
Sure. See, like first diet, healthy, balanced, nutritious diet. If they're taking from the beginning, it's well and good. At every stage of life, that's required.
Correct.
Fresh fruits, fresh food, leafy green vegetables, sprouts. Soya is said to contain phytoestrogens. Phytoestrogens are animal-based estrogens, which get attached to estrogen receptors in the body and behave like estrogens. You know what? People in Korea, there's not even a word for hot flash. They don't even know what's it because they eat so much of soya. It's not that we have to stuff it all the time, but that's one thing that can help you. And like you can have a cup of soya milk or half a cup of soya that we have in the market, or maybe 1/3 cup of tofu.
Okay.
And don't have to take it daily if you don't like it. That's all right. Then avoid trans fats, avoid fatty foods, avoid processed foods. These are things that everyone should follow in every stage of their life, except for this soya bit. I think that's important. As for exercises, again,
are there any supplements, that you can add to this?
See, there are lots of supplements available in the market. Black horse, soya, ginseng, and all those things. They should be taken with a pinch of salt because they're not standardized. They're not approved by FDA. And then ginseng is said to cause sometimes post-menopause bleeding also.
Okay.
So you don't take that. Of course, you can take calcium is very important because for bone health, the bones start getting depleted of calcium. There's just a structure standing there. Like old women, just bathroom se jara se giri aur unki hadiyan toot jati. So for that calcium, vitamin D, it's so paradoxical that in a country flooded with sunshine, most of us suffer from vitamin D deficiency. AC mein rehna, AC car mein jana, AC malls mein jana, AC workplace mein, no one sits in the sun. They're so worried about being so fair, and that's important. You don't have to sit in the sun whole day. There's just about 20 minutes also. That's good enough. And the vitamin D, B complex also said to help in decreasing hot flashes. So these things they can take. And supposing they have iron deficiency, anemia, or they've got other issues added, they can take medicines for that.
I remember my friends used to take primrose oil and all of that. Does that make a difference?
Yeah, that also you can take.
Okay, lovely. So from a nutrition point of view, these would be some of the things that we could do. Exercise, should you increase it? Should you decrease it? What would you suggest?
People keep saying around menopause, okay, we're eating the same amount of food, we're eating the same, exercising as we used to exercise before, and yet we are gaining weight. That could be due to two things. One is because of the metabolism slows down. Secondly, hypothyroidism also comes into play. So they will have to exercise a bit more, control the diet a bit more if they want to have that svelte figure. But having said that, quoted at the end of the book, in the beginning of the book only, that women who gain a little extra weight live more than the men who mention it. So that doesn't matter. Moti ho gayi. That doesn't matter. So they shouldn't worry over that unless it's their profession, of course. Then the exercise otherwise for a normal woman is like 30 minutes per day for 5 days a week. Twice a week, they should do weight-bearing exercises because the muscle mass decreases and the fat starts increasing to keep the muscle mass and for bone health. And thirdly, Kegel's exercise are those perineal muscles exercises. Vaginal muscles have to be contracted and relaxed so that they don't pass urine while laughing or sneezing, or they can hold the urine while they're going till they reach the toilet, because that's another big issue that occurs during this thing.
With the Kegels, do you have a set number, set hold, set squeeze that you recommend? Or
you can do it 24. Even like one of the doctors said, just red light mein ruke na, tum Kegel shuru kar lo, like that. Or just we can talk, or we can do any time. There are you can squeeze and relax, squeeze, keep it for 10 seconds, then relax, squeeze, keep it again for 10 seconds, and you can do it 10 times each thing, at least 3 times a day. Sitting, talking on the phone, gossiping with you can do it anytime. You don't have to lie down or do. People tend to pull the tummy in also. It's not that. It's only that. That's a special thing they should know.
Correct.
It's good for the sex life also.
Absolutely. In fact, you should be doing it throughout our life. We shouldn't just be waiting for our perimenopause. And boys and girls as well.
Postpartum also, during pregnancy also, we teach them to do Kegels exercises.
Absolutely. And it's also beneficial for men, right? It's not just only women that need to be doing Kegels. Absolutely. All the time. All throughout my podcast, I do Kegels.
So diet ho gaya, exercise ho gaya, sleep. Sleep is very important. But there are a lot of things that disturb the sleep also. It's because of this frequent desire to urinate, the hot flashes and cold sweats, the mood swings, this thing. So it's good to exercise in the evening, do some deep breathing, and don't watch scary TV. Read a book or listen to some light music, and keep a fixed time for sleeping and fixed time for getting up. And if you exercise, you'll feel tired, you'll feel hungry, and exercise is the key. You exercise well, you want to eat well, and you want to sleep well also, that is. So sleep it's very important. Then social activities. Do not stay alone, or do not say कि अब मेरी जिंदगी खत्म हो गई, अब तुम लोग बच्चे जियो. It's not that. It's your जिंदगी is as important as anybody else. You have your own group of friends. Even if it's kitty party, if some people are religiously inclined, they can go to the mandir also, to each their own. But they should be socially involved. Thirdly is creativity. They should do something that they like, something passionate about, or even if it's a hobby. Not everyone has passions. Hobby which they could not do because of their commitments in the reproductive life. Fourthly is relaxation, deep breathing, meditation, pranayam, and yoga. These also help them. These are some of the things that they can do.
Lovely. Doctor, it's so interesting because menopause intersects at that point of life when you suddenly are alone. Emptiness syndrome, like you said, right? Everyone's gone away. Now you are firstly going through a bodily change and alone at the same time. So like you said, having a hobby, doing these things, doing something creative, I think is a great way of covering up that time.
I think you should begin right at the beginning only, when you're still you should have some other interest besides your children. Or a job that gets over, like our job or your job may not be over after a certain time, but there are jobs that finish and you do not know what to do. So you should have all that from the beginning only.
Very good. So you have free time to be able to fill up with all these creative activities.
Yes.
Doctor, multiple times through the podcast, we've discussed hot flashes and cold flashes and, those feelings. And those are not just something that you, inverted commas, suffer through individually, because the family also then becomes aware, right? Now, how for people who are husbands or sons, etc., who will not be going through the menopause, how can we support our mothers or wives going through menopause?
First of all, make her feel cherished, wanted, loved, no matter what. Not if she's growing old, if she's no longer needed now. See, children, it's a fact of life. They love the mother directly in proportion to the need. The one in the womb, Absolutely. The one in the breast, the toddler, the older, then they resent the mother's interference. In fact, they actually dislike her for a while, and then gradually they get used to her being around. And like even this little thing, I asked my son to help me with this on the recorder, and he was getting so impatient with me. He said, "You're such a bad student." He said, "You're such a bad teacher." Go. So that's the thing. We live separately, but nearby, so that I have my space to write, and I can meet my grandchildren when I want to. So we are together and yet away. We give us space to each other. But I called him for this because I suddenly read, Zalak had said that you need headphones. Yeah. So. What was he talking about?
So we were talking about feeling needed, making sure that they feel needed, because as you said that the children move away, correct?
Yeah. And then don't make fun of her, because she can't help it. And be supportive. That's important.
I think that's the biggest one, right? We always make fun of hot flash. Suddenly you want the AC on. Suddenly you want the AC off. I remember I'm guilty of doing that with my mom when she was going through it. So I know exactly what you're
My husband and I used to quarrel, and I used to tell him, see, if I can't sleep at night, how will I get up for an early morning surgery? If I've come up after late night delivery, how am I going to sleep? Then short of shifting to another room, there was nothing else I could do. And I would need the AC. I said, why can't you take 2 blankets and let me have the AC on? So that does happen.
Doctor, what causes these hot flashes and these cold things? I have no clue.
See, everything in the body is due to that happens here. I call menopause a temperamental creature, and it is in our interest to treat her well, because whether we like it or not, she's going to stay with us for the rest of her life. And the nature of menopause is different in different women. With some, she becomes instant friends. With some, she takes some time to get acquainted. With others, she remains at loggerheads, and she needs to be put in her place with the help of a doctor. So one of these things that can happen, and then we should not, but what are easygoing or temperamental, slowly but surely she takes up over each and every one of our system. And if we are not vigilant enough, she will be running or maybe even ruining our lives. So don't let menopause get the better of you. That is my mantra. So what I want them to do is that what is hot flushes are due to disturbance in the thermoregulation, which is also interdependent with estrogens. Like every system it's taking out, so one of them is this thermoregulation. So that is why it occurs.
And it doesn't continue for the rest of your life once menopause happens, it's over?
Usually it's in the early phases.
Early phase.
Early means it can even last for 5 years after that. And it can begin in the perimenopausal phase. If otherwise, there are little tips that you have to do to control them. And another thing the family can do is not give her stress. Stress is which is easier said than done. But the thing is that supposing a woman gets a hot flash, and after that is cold sweats, hot flashes and cold sweats at a workplace. So it's very embarrassing. She should keep a thermos of ice cold water and take a sip as soon as she is thinking. She should stay in a well-ventilated room. Keep a personal fan with her also. Wear cotton clothes, that too in layers. Because she'll take it out during the hot flash, but she'll feel cold afterwards. So she need to wear that also. And then again, like I said, easier said than done. Avoid work-related stress also. So if these help, well and good. And if the hot flushes and cold sweats are mild enough to not interfere with your day-to-day life, then these will help. But if they're getting 15 to 20 in a day and you're really, you cannot live your life properly, then you might be put on HRT.
We're going to take a quick break. See you on the other side. Welcome back. All right, let's jump into the conversation. In fact, that was my next question about that, which is HRT. Can you tell us what it is? When should we do this? When should we not do this, etc.?
HRT, hormone replacement therapy. It was called that even when I was writing that book. But now it is called MHT, menopausal hormone therapy. It came into vogue when we were going through menopause, and the doctors were the first to rush and start taking them because everyone wants to look young. And it was not about young, because my family had a very strong history of heart disease. My parents are cousins. They got married and all the family, both sides have got heart attack. So I thought maybe it will prevent or delay heart problems. Even I took it for a long time. And surprisingly, my triglycerides, which were normal, started rising. So till then, what happened was that there was a lot of study done. You should not rush for any new medicine like that. And they realized that it has got a lot of side effects. And it is not as useful for Alzheimer or secondary heart disease or for these things as it was thought to earlier. And there's a slight risk of getting breast cancer and uterine cancer. Uterine cancer is different from cervical. Cervical is the mouth of the uterus, and uterine cancer is inside the uterus. So these things, then they're scared, then people went to the other end of the pendulum. Lena hi nahi. Evening primrose oil, menopause, Ayurvedic medicines on these things, and those things they went to. So now the pendulum has come right in the center. So now there are certain things, only 3 things which they are prescribed for the shortest possible period under strict medical supervision. After detailed history of family history, personal history of diseases that can be accentuated after taking HRT. So first, of course, is hot flashes and cold sweats, which really does trouble some person, and it is quite useful for that. Of course, like vitamin B, there's there are other drugs also that help for them. But for HRT, we're talking about HRT. Secondly is this vaginal dryness and even urinary complaints. That stress incontinence is passing droplets of urine while coughing, sneezing, straining. And urge incontinence is when you cannot hold your urine. So these 2 things also it helps. But for these, the good thing is that you need only creams and not those tablets that cause the side effects. Why is the bladder also dependent on this is because the back of the bladder is adherent to the front of the vagina, and these two are made of the same tissue, which is estrogen dependent. So that is why that it helps for that also, in those also. And thirdly is for bone health. The DEXA or the levels are very low, and this history of fractures or family history of fractures, that these patients, they need it for a longer time. But then you have to give them HRT also. So these are the three things that they're actually needed for these days.
And the HRT is one particular hormone? Is it a cocktail of hormones? What is it?
There are two hormones, those female sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. But it depends on whether you have a uterus or you don't have a uterus, because a lot of women get the uterus out. And because unopposed action, the hormone that really helps is estrogen. The unopposed action of estrogen will lead to all those side effects that I have told you, the harmful side effects. So we have to add progesterone to counter its effect for the last 7 days of each cycle, or continuously also. Continuously, estrogen, progesterone, there are combined pills, there are pills. But if the one doesn't have a uterus, you don't need to give progesterone. But sometimes what happens, progesterones can cause breast cancer. So there are hormone-dependent breast cancer, they're family-dependent. So we have to be very particular about what we give and when we give and how much we give.
I think this is a very interesting area that is, I think, developing in terms of the kinds of hormones and that are growing in this. Lovely. Doctor, when it comes to when you were writing this book, you've chosen a few stories in it. Can you share like maybe one of your favorite stories in terms of what happened and how you helped a patient?
These stories?
Anything that you would like to share as a journey, so that people at the end of our podcast can just understand, what is the mental state, how you've helped the person, because a large part of your work is also counseling.
Yeah. So that I just give them this advice: if they come for these sort of things and they feel they've lost out on life and they feel rejected and depressed and they feel no one is taking care of them, I said, no one will take care of you. Don't worry here. So now I've shifted here near to my son. I don't expect them to come and sit and gossip with me. So I've made my own friends in a new place. So you have to, I have to tell them that I can only help you by giving you medicines, giving you advice. But your lifestyle, your attitude, you have to change. And if you say that, some women just say, मैं तो कुछ नहीं कर सकती, मेरा तो हाथ दर्द हो रहा, मैंने कहा क्यों, क्या हुआ? मेरे को सर्वाइकल हो गया। मैंने कहा मैं तो ऑपरेशन कर करके मेरा गर्दन सालों से मैं सर्वाइकल लेके बैठी होती, I would be just sitting at home. You just have to change your attitude. So there are women who just do listen and they agree. Then they start, we'll humiliate you and all that. So I said, that's the other way. That's most of them.
I love that. I think if you can emulate Dr. Bajaj, that's a fantastic thing. I think you're a very cool doctor, especially with the little jokes that you put inside and the poems that you've written in your book. I found it very, very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bajaj, is there anything that we have not covered that you would like to talk about with regards to menopause or life after menopause?
After menopause, like all these symptoms we've covered, just be happy and be content and be thankful that you're alive. Be thankful you're healthy. And if there are issues that arise, don't let them bog you down. There are treatments. They could either be controlled or treated. And then we all have to go someday. But why die before dying?
I love that. Why die before dying? Like you said, live your best life. Your book is called Live Your Best Life. And you have so much more to live for. It is not the end. I like to think of as not menopause as in like, pausing or halting, but as in almost starting something new in your life. And you should think of it.
Pause. We're not going to pause. Yeah, that's true.
Me or no pause.
Yeah. A new era in your life.
You're starting a new era in your life. Please go. Do check out Dr. Bajaj's book. Do buy it. It's available on all the platforms. Dr. Bajaj, thank you so much for joining us on the Habit Coach podcast. Is there any way that people can reach out to you if people want to talk to you and continue this conversation?
On my email address.
So we'll put the email address down in the show notes below. Dr. Bajaj, thank you so much for joining.
Phone calls will be too much, na? They will keep on.
No. I think emails are a good idea. Otherwise, you'll get 100 phone calls a day. Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. If there's any way I can help you, please let me know. And for the next book, definitely we must do this again.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, if you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am at Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. We have a brand new habit coaching online course, quizzes, videos, and a lot more on the website awesome180.com. So check it out now.